The briefcase sat on the back seat like a ticking time bomb. Kwame Johnson's hands trembled on the steering wheel as he stared at it through the rear-view mirror. Inside that leather case was more money than he'd seen in his entire life. $300,000 in cash. He knew because he'd opened it. He'd counted it.
Twice.
His daughter Nia needed a kidney transplant. The medical bills were drowning them. His wife Zara worked double shifts at the hospital, and he drove this taxi 16 hours a day, but they were still $40,000 short. The surgery was scheduled in 3 weeks, and without it, his little girl would die. The money in that briefcase could save her life. Kwame pulled into an empty parking lot and cut the engine. His phone buzzed. Another text from Zara. Doctor called again. We need to make a decision soon. He closed his eyes, and all he could see was Nia's face, her bright smile dimmed by the dialysis treatments, her small hand squeezing his as she whispered, "It's okay, Daddy. I'm not scared." The passenger who'd left the briefcase was a white woman in her 50s, dressed in an expensive suit. She'd been on her phone the entire ride, barking orders about some business deal. She hadn't even looked at him when she'd paid and rushed out. People like her probably had insurance for this kind of loss. People like her didn't know what it meant to choose between saving your child and keeping your soul. Kwame reached back and grabbed the briefcase. The leather was smooth, probably cost more than his monthly rent. He popped it open one more time. Stacks of $100 bills, neatly bundled. A business card tucked in the side pocket. Rebecca Patterson, Patterson and Associates. He could disappear.
Take the money.
Move to another city. Save Nia. Or he could do something that might destroy his only chance to save his daughter's life. Kwame sat in that. Kwame's story hadn't always been this desperate. 5 years ago, he'd been a mechanic with his own small shop in the suburbs of Atlanta. Business was steady, life was good. Zara was pregnant with Nia, and they'd just bought their first house, a modest 3-bedroom with a backyard where he'd imagined teaching his daughter to ride a bike. Then the recession hit their neighborhood hard. Big chain auto shops moved in, undercutting his prices. Customers stopped coming. Within 18 months, Kwame had lost everything. The shop closed. The house went into foreclosure. They moved into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a rougher part of town. Kwame took the only job he could find that didn't require starting over completely, driving a taxi. The hours were brutal, the pay was barely enough, but he told himself it was temporary. He'd rebuild. He always did. Then Nia got sick. It started with fatigue. She was only 4 years old, but too tired to play. Then came the swelling, the loss of appetite, the terrible diagnosis that shattered their world. Chronic kidney disease. She needed a transplant, and neither Kwame nor Zara were matches. They'd been on the donor list for 8 months, watching their daughter fade while medical bills piled up like gravestones. Now, sitting in this parking lot with $300,000 that didn't belong to him, Kwame thought about all the times he'd done the right thing and gotten nothing but heartache in return. He'd been honest his whole life, paid his taxes, helped neighbors, went to church every Sunday. And where had it gotten him?
His phone rang.
It was Zara. "Baby, where are you?" Her voice was strained. "Nia's asking for you. She had a bad day with dialysis." "I'm coming home soon," Kwame said, his voice thick. I need to handle something first." "What's wrong? You sound strange." "Nothing. I love you." He hung up before she could press further. Kwame looked at Rebecca Patterson's business card again. Her office was downtown, about 30 minutes away. He could drive there right now, hand over the briefcase, and watch his daughter's last chance at life disappear with it. Or he could start the car, drive in the opposite direction, and become someone he'd sworn he'd never be. Kwame closed the briefcase, his decision made. He turned the key in the ignition, pulled out of the parking lot, and headed toward downtown Atlanta. Every mile felt like driving toward his own execution. When he pulled up to the sleek glass building that housed Patterson and Associates, his heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst. He grabbed the briefcase and walked inside. The lobby was all marble and modern art, the kind of place where people like him only entered to clean the floors. The receptionist looked up with barely concealed suspicion. Can I help you? Rebecca Patterson stared at Kwame like he was a ghost. Her hands shook as she reached for the briefcase, then stopped, pulling back as if afraid to believe it was real. You opened it, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Kwame nodded. Yes, ma'am. I did. And you still brought it back. Her voice cracked. Do you have any idea what's in here? $300,000, Kwame said. Give or take. The receptionist gasped. Security guards who'd been watching from a distance moved closer. Rebecca held up her hand, stopping them. Come with me, she said. Please. Kwame followed her into a private office overlooking the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Atlanta skyline. Rebecca closed the door and sat down heavily in her chair, gesturing for Kwame to sit across from her. What's your name? She asked. Kwame Johnson. Mr. Johnson, that money you returned represents 6 months of work. It's payment for a construction project in a community that desperately needs it. If I'd lost it, dozens of families would have suffered. The project would have died. She paused, studying his face. Why did you bring it back? Kwame thought about lying, about playing the humble hero. But he was too tired for that. I almost didn't, he admitted. I sat in a parking lot for 20 minutes trying to convince myself to keep it. My daughter is dying, Miss Patterson. She needs a kidney transplant, and we don't have the money for it. That briefcase could have saved her life. Rebecca's expression shifted from gratitude to something deeper, more painful. But you returned it anyway. My daughter asked me once what it means to be a good man, Kwame said, his voice breaking. I told her it means doing the right thing even when it costs you everything. I couldn't look her in the eye and tell her that lie while stealing someone else's money, even to save her. She deserves better than a father who's a thief. Silence filled the office. Rebecca stood and walked to the window, her back to him. My son died 3 years ago, she said suddenly. He was 17. Leukemia. We had all the money in the world for treatment, the best doctors, everything. But none of it mattered. He still died. She turned around, tears streaming down her face. Do you know what he made me promise before he passed? He made me promise to use our wealth to help people who couldn't help themselves. He said that's what money was really for. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a checkbook. How much do you need for your daughter's surgery? Kwame's heart stopped. Miss Patterson, I didn't bring back your money to get a reward. How much? She repeated firmly. $40,000. But I can't accept. You can and you will. Rebecca started writing. What hospital is she at? Emory University Hospital. Rebecca made a phone call right there, with Kwame sitting in stunned silence. Within minutes, she'd spoken to the hospital administrator, a transplant coordinator, and someone in their financial department. When she hung up, she looked at Kwame with fierce determination. The surgery is paid for, she said. All of it. And I'm putting your daughter at the top of the donor coordination list. I'm on the hospital's board of directors. We'll find her a kidney. Kwame couldn't speak. Tears poured down his face. But I want something from you in return, Rebecca continued. When your daughter is healthy, when this is all over, I want you to come work for me. Not as a driver. As a community outreach coordinator for my foundation. We need people who understand what real struggle looks like. People with integrity. People like you. She handed him the check and a business card. The surgery lasted 7 hours. Kwame and Zara sat in the waiting room, holding hands so tightly their fingers went numb. Zara had cried when Kwame told her everything, the briefcase, the money, the impossible choice he'd faced. She'd held his face in her hands and whispered, I married a good man. Nia is lucky to have you as her father. Rebecca Patterson had shown up at the hospital around hour 3. She didn't say much, just sat with them, brought them coffee, and waited. When Kwame tried to thank her again, she shook her head. You gave me something I lost when my son died, she said. You reminded me that good people still exist. That integrity isn't dead. That's worth more than any briefcase full of money. When Dr. Williams finally came through those doors, his mask pulled down and a smile on his face, Kwame felt his knees buckle. The surgery was a complete success. Nia's body is accepting the kidney beautifully. She's going to be okay. Zara collapsed into Kwame's arms, both of them weeping with relief and joy. 3 weeks later, Nia came home. The color had returned to her cheeks. Her smile was bright again. She ran around their small apartment with energy they hadn't seen in over a year, and Kwame couldn't stop watching her, couldn't stop thanking God for the miracle that had saved her life. Rebecca kept her promise. 6 months after Nia's surgery, when she was strong and healthy and back in school, Kwame started his new job at the Patterson Foundation. His role was to identify families in crisis and connect them with resources, to be the bridge between people who had nothing and people who could help. He was good at it. He understood their pain, their desperation, their pride. Within a year, the foundation had helped over 200 families. Kwame's salary was triple what he'd made driving a taxi. They moved into a better apartment, then eventually bought a house, a new start in the same neighborhood where they'd lost everything years before. But Kwame never forgot that moment in the parking lot. He never forgot how close he'd come to making a different choice. He talked about it sometimes at the community events he organized, sharing his story to encourage others struggling with impossible decisions. "I almost kept that money," he'd tell them honestly. "I almost became someone I wasn't. But I learned something important that day. When you do the right thing, even when it costs you everything, somehow the universe finds a way to take care of you.
Not always the way you expect.
Not always on your timeline, but it happens." Now, before we end the story, I want to ask you something. What would you have done if you were Kwame? Would you have returned the briefcase? Or would you have kept the money to save your child? Be honest with yourself. Drop your answer in the comments below. And tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our viewers all around the world. If this story touched your heart, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories like this. Give us a thumbs up if you believe in doing the right thing even when it's hard. And share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. Sometimes we all need a reminder that good things happen to good people. Nia is 12 years old now. She's healthy, thriving, and dreams of becoming a doctor. Every year on the anniversary of her surgery, the Johnson family visits the hospital and brings gifts to children going through what Nia survived. And every year, Rebecca Patterson joins them. What started as a choice in a parking lot became a friendship that changed 2 families forever. Kwame learned that integrity has a price, but it also has a reward that money can't buy. He learned that sometimes losing everything is how you find out what you're really made of. And he learned that one moment of honesty, one decision to do right when everything inside you screams to do wrong, can